What if I told you that freezing in a modern apartment with barely warm radiators is a problem that medieval castle dwellers never even dreamed of? We tend to think that their world consisted of cold stone, drafts, and eternal winter. But that's only part of the truth. They developed a sleeping system so effective that it allowed them to sleep in warmth and comfort while the blizzard howled outside. This system was a true engineering marvel, based not on technology, but on a deep understanding of materials and physics. Every element, from the massive bed to the small cap, played a crucial role. They didn't just survive the cold nights, they enjoyed sleeping in a cocoon of down, wool, and linen. This experience was not available to many, but those who could afford it created an entire culture of sleep. This culture was full of practical and ingenious solutions. Watch the video to the end to find out why a medieval bed was more like a small room and how simple household items allowed people to sleep warm, even in the most severe frosts. I will reveal the most closely guarded secret about medieval life. Everything you have seen in movies, where people sleep on dirty straw on the floor, is mostly fiction. This image, firmly rooted in our minds, is actually a product of later eras, especially the 19th century, when romanticism and the desire to emphasize the Dark Ages formed a distorted view. Of course, the poorest segments of the population could not afford luxurious beds. They may have slept on the floor, but even then, they tried to create a minimum of comfort for themselves. This could be a simple mat or a bag filled with straw, but it was a mattress bag, not just straw scattered on the floor. Archaeological finds and written sources paint a completely different picture. Even in the homes of modest townspeople and wealthy peasants, the remains of simple but functional wooden beds have been found. These beds were designed to raise the sleeper above the cold and drafty floor. The idea of sleeping on the floor contradicted the very foundations of medieval hygiene and comfort. Floors at that time were not the cleanest places, and raising the bed to a higher level was a matter not only of warmth, but also of basic disgust. People have always sought to separate themselves from dirt and cold. Straw did play an important role, but not as bedding on the floor. It was the main and most affordable filling for mattresses. These straw mattresses were the basis of bedding for most of the population. They were regularly changed and dried, which was quite hygienic. Wealthier people could afford mattresses stuffed with wool, horsehair, or even feathers. But straw remained the basic material. It provided the necessary elasticity and, more importantly, insulation from the cold wooden bed frame. The myth of straw on the floor is very persistent because it fits well with our idea of the primitiveness of that era. It creates a vivid and dramatic contrast with our modern life. However, it hides from us the true ingenuity of medieval people. They were not primitive savages, meekly freezing on the floor. They actively fought the cold and discomfort using all the means available to them. Their solutions were practical, logical, and surprisingly effective. This myth prevents us from seeing the main thing. Medieval people valued comfort and warmth no less than we do. They simply achieved them in different ways. Understanding this is the first step to unraveling their warm secrets. So the next time you see a character in a movie throwing themselves onto a pile of straw in the corner, know that this is most likely artistic exaggeration. The real story of sleep is much more interesting and warmer. I'm very interested to hear your point of view. What other deep-rooted myths about the Middle Ages do you know? Write about it in the comments and be sure to subscribe to the channel.
Look at the boy, he'll sleep right in the bowl.
He takes after his father.
Are you ready to learn the truth about what the main piece of furniture in a medieval home was? It was the bed. In an era when furnishings were incredibly expensive and furniture itself was considered a luxury, the bed was the center of all domestic life. It not only served as a place to sleep, but also showed how rich and respected the owner of the house was. In poor families, people could sleep directly on straw, but for the nobility, the bed occupied the main place in the chambers. It was not just a part of the interior, but a symbol of prosperity and power. In those days, beds were truly impressive in size. In the homes of the nobility, they took up half the room, and sometimes even more. Several people could sleep on such beds at once: spouses, children, servants, or even guests, if there were not enough separate rooms in the house. This seems strange by modern standards, but back then, warmth and safety were more important than privacy. A large bed allowed everyone to keep warm on cold nights and feel protected. The size of the bed also had practical significance. The higher and wider it was, the warmer it was to sleep, especially in winter when houses were poorly heated. The owners could afford the luxury of huge down quilts, pillows, and heavy blankets. The more fabric and feathers were used, the better the heat was retained. Therefore, a large bed was considered not only comfortable, but also vitally necessary. The bed's construction was impressive for its strength and massiveness. It was made from the best types of wood, most often oak, because it was hard and durable. The wood not only supported the weight of heavy duvets and canopies, but also served as a decoration for the room. Wood carving turned ordinary furniture into a true work of art. Family crests or ornaments were often carved on the backs of beds to show the noble origins of their owners. Particular attention was paid to the headboard. It was tall and decorated with carved patterns, gold elements, or even fabric. Such a headboard protected sleepers from cold walls, as stone houses in the Middle Ages were rarely warm. Sometimes tapestries or carpets were hung on the back to retain heat and add comfort. In such conditions, the bed became not just a place to rest, but a real refuge from the cold and drafts. Another important detail was the 4 massive posts at the corners of the bed. They not only gave the structure an impressive appearance, but also served as a support for the canopy. The canopy or awning was an integral part of the bed. It protected sleepers from dust, insects, and prying eyes. Such canopies were especially common in castles, where several people could live in the same room. The canopy over the bed also had a symbolic function. It gave the sleeping place the appearance of a throne, emphasizing the special status of the owners. The most expensive fabrics were chosen for canopies: velvet, silk, brocade. They were decorated with embroidery, fringe, and precious tassels. Sometimes a small lamp or candle was hung inside the canopy so that one could read before bed. Of course, such decorations were inaccessible to poor people. Their beds were much simpler, low, without posts or canopies, but even then, they tried to make them higher so as not to sleep on the cold floor. The high legs of the bed protected against dampness, and things or even pets were often stored under them so that they would not freeze at night. Thus, the bed became not just a place to sleep, but part of the household. The bed base was also of particular importance. It was not solid like modern frames. It was based on a system of stretch ropes or leather straps. These intertwined straps served as a support for the mattress and allowed air to circulate. Thanks to this, the mattress did not get damp and remained cleaner. This design made sleep softer and more comfortable. Over time, the ropes sagged and needed to be tightened. A special wooden key was used for this purpose. This is where the expression "sleep tight" came from, which literally meant sleep on tightly stretched ropes. It was not just a phrase, but a reminder that good sleep requires care and attention. Medieval people understood that even the most luxurious bed needs attention. Mattresses in those days were made in different ways. For noble people, they were stuffed with feathers, wool, or even herbs with a pleasant smell that repelled insects. In simpler homes, straw was used, which had to be changed every few weeks to avoid the appearance of parasites. Sometimes canvas or linen cloth was placed on top of the straw to make the surface softer. Pillows and blankets were also important. The rich had huge ones with silk pillowcases and embroidery. They were filled with swan or goose feathers. Poor families stuffed fabric with wool or dry leaves. Despite the difference in materials, the bed remained the warmest place in the house. People spent not only their nights there, but also cold winter days. During the day, the bed often became a place for rest and communication. Guests could sit on it, especially if there were no armchairs in the house. For noble ladies, the bed served as a place for morning receptions. They would recline and chat with visitors, read letters, or do needlework. This was quite natural, as the bed was associated with comfort and the warmth of home. The importance of the bed was also emphasized in legal documents. It was often mentioned in wills, along with jewelry and silver. The transfer of a bed meant the transfer of status and respect. Sometimes a bed was passed down from generation to generation and became a real family heirloom. Losing it was considered a misfortune and a disgrace. Each bed had its own history. It could witness the birth of children, family conversations, and important decisions. In those days, life revolved around the bed, from rest to illness and death. It was the center of the home, like today's living room or kitchen. That is why it was treated with special respect and even reverence. The bed in a medieval home was a real fortress. It protected from the cold, drafts, and even the outside world. When the canopy curtains were drawn, a person found themselves in their own little refuge, where they could forget about the hustle and bustle and dangers of the outside world. This symbol of security made the bed not just a piece of furniture, but a part of the soul of the home. But despite its strength and luxury, the bed remained just a frame. It was like a skeleton that needed to be brought to life and warmed up. Everything depended on how it was decorated and covered. Fabrics, pillows, bedspreads, furs. These were the things that transformed the wooden structure into a cozy place to rest. Without them, even the most expensive bed remained cold and empty. Fabrics created warmth and comfort. They not only kept you warm, but also decorated the bed. Beautiful drapery showed the taste and wealth of the owners. Often, fabrics were chosen to match the rest of the room's decor, and sometimes they contrasted to emphasize wealth. In the most expensive homes, fabrics were brought from far away, from Italy or the East. This made the bed a true work of art. Thus, the bed was not just a place to sleep, but the center of the entire home. It combined comfort, wealth, and tradition. Without it, it is impossible to imagine life in a medieval home. It reflected the character of its owners and their position in society. Every element, from the carved legs to the soft pillows, had meaning and created an atmosphere of comfort and security. Ready to learn how ordinary pieces of fabric transformed this wooden skeleton into an impregnable bastion of warmth? In the next chapter, we'll talk about a real textile fortress. What I am about to show you will forever change your perception of medieval curtains. We are used to thinking of fabrics and interiors as decoration, but in the Middle Ages, textiles were not decoration, but a vital technology. It was fabrics, not stone walls, that created real comfort and warmth in the home. The bed with posts and a canopy that we talked about was just the foundation. The main role was played by heavy, thick curtains that hung on all four sides. These were not light tulle curtains, but real tapestries or thick woolen cloths. At night, these curtains were drawn tightly. The difference in temperature inside and outside such a bed could be striking. While the room was freezing and the water in the jug was covered with ice, it was warm and cozy inside the bed under the curtains. It was an ingenious engineering solution that did not require a drop of fuel. These curtains were incredibly expensive. Fabrics, especially those dyed in bright colors, were valued at their weight in gold. A set of such curtains for a bed could cost more than the wooden frame itself. They were the brightest indicator of status and wealth. The richest people used velvet, silk, or brocade for curtains, often embroidered with gold and silver threads. Simpler people were content with heavy wool or thick linen, but the principle remained the same: to create an airtight, warm capsule. The walls of rooms were also often hung with fabrics or tapestries. This was done not only for beauty. The fabric on the wall served as an additional layer of insulation, blocking the cold coming from the stone and improving the acoustics in the room, making it quieter and more comfortable. Even the canopy over the bed, or cellier, was not just a roof. Its inner part, the tester, was often richly decorated, but its main function was practical. It protected sleepers from dust, small debris, or even insects that could fall from the ceiling. The entire medieval sleeping system was built around textiles. The bed was merely a frame for this complex drapery. Fabrics were the main weapon in the fight against the cold. They created warmth and comfort and demonstrated the status of the owner. This approach, not to heat the entire room, but to create a local warm zone, was the only correct one in those conditions, and it was perfected. If you like this discovery, like this video, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos about amazing survival methods in the Middle Ages. When the bed is so carefully prepared, the question arises, what did medieval people wear when they went to bed? And here again, we find a discrepancy with popular myths. Paintings, miniatures, and films often show people in long, loose nightgowns similar to modern shirts. This image is not entirely wrong, but it does not reflect reality for the majority of the population. These shirts did exist, but not everyone could afford them. They were the prerogative of the rich, those who could order clothes made of fine linen or silk and not worry about wear and tear. For ordinary people, everything was much more prosaic. Peasants and townspeople slept in what they wore all day, an undergarment that served as both underwear and nightwear. Such shirts were usually made of coarse linen, and for those who were wealthier, of soft homespun cloth. It was long and loose so as not to restrict movement, and served several functions at once. During the day, it absorbed sweat under outer clothing, and at night it served as a soft barrier between the body and the blanket. This simple shirt was considered a universal item. It was rarely washed. Washing was a laborious task, and clothes were cherished. Instead, the shirt could be dried by the fire or in the sun to get rid of moisture. Such simplicity was not due to carelessness, but to necessity. After all, in conditions where a family might have only one bed, hygiene and comfort often gave way to practicality and warmth. Some historians claim that many people slept without clothes at all, and that made sense too. In cramped quarters, where several people slept under one blanket, body heat was better retained if nothing got in the way. In addition, clothes did not wear out as quickly. Washing in cold water without soap was difficult and rare, so people tried to preserve fabrics for as long as possible. With the onset of the late Middle Ages, when hygiene and manners began to take on greater importance, habits began to change. Special nightwear appeared in wealthy homes. These were long, loose shirts made of thin linen, batiste, or even silk. Such nightwear was light and soft, and was often decorated with embroidery or lace on the collar and sleeves. These nightshirts served several purposes at once. They protected bedding from dirt, kept the body warm, and emphasized the status of the owner. Particular attention was paid to the fabric. Silk was considered the height of luxury, but only the wealthiest could afford it. Linen shirts remained the most common because linen was breathable and relatively inexpensive. Sometimes the fabric was scented with herbs such as lavender or rosemary to give the clothing a pleasant smell. Wearing such a shirt was considered a sign of neatness and refinement. However, regardless of wealth, almost everyone had one common element of nightwear: a cap. This accessory, which at first glance seems ridiculous, was absolutely necessary. Nightcaps were made of linen or wool, depending on the season. They fit snugly around the head, and the long tail or tassel was not a decoration. It helped to keep the shape and hold the fabric in place. Why was it needed? Medieval houses, even those of the wealthy, were cold. Stone walls did not retain heat well, and windows were often drafty. People slept under several heavy blankets, but their heads remained uncovered, and it was through their heads that a lot of heat was lost. Studies show that a person can lose up to a third of their body heat through their head, especially if it is not covered. A nightcap solved this problem. It retained heat and protected against drafts, which were particularly common in stone castles and wooden houses. Sometimes the cap had long ears or ties so that it could be secured while sleeping. Simple peasants sewed them from scraps of fabric, while the wealthy could afford soft ones decorated with lace or even fur trim. For women, the cap was replaced by a bonnet. It served the same purpose. It kept them warm, protected their hair, and helped preserve their hairstyles. This was especially important because the elaborate hairstyles worn by townswomen and noble ladies could last for several days. Sleeping with your head covered was comfortable and practical. In addition, in some families, it was considered indecent to go to bed with your head uncovered. Sometimes women simply tied a light cloth or scarf around their heads. This protected their hair from smoke and soot, as even bedrooms could have candles or a hearth. In addition, the cloth protected against insects and helped keep the bed clean. For wealthy ladies, the caps could be embroidered and decorated with lace, while for ordinary women, they were rough and practical, but equally necessary. We must not forget that nightwear had symbolic meaning. In wealthy homes, putting on a nightshirt could be part of the evening ritual. Servants helped their master undress, carefully combed his hair, and brought warm water to wash his hands and face. Only then did he put on his nightclothes and cap. This gave the process of rest a special solemnity. For the poor, everything was simpler. They could just take off their outer clothes, get under the blanket, and fall asleep. Sometimes they didn't even take off their shoes if it was particularly cold. But regardless of social class, everyone wanted the same thing: to keep warm and get a good night's sleep. And in this, nightwear, no matter how simple or expensive, played a huge role. Thus, the approach to nightwear in the Middle Ages was diverse. Some slept in luxurious silk shirts, some in coarse linen shirts, and some without any clothes at all. But they all had one thing in common: the desire to keep their beds warm and clean. And the main symbol of sleep, accessible to everyone, remained the modest nightcap, which protected the head from the cold and drafts. In addition to simple bricks and bottles of water, there was also a specialized device designed exclusively for warming beds. It was so widespread and effective that it can be considered one of the main heating gadgets of that era. We are talking about a metal bed warmer, or warming pan. This warmer was a metal frying pan with a very long handle. The frying pan itself was shallow but quite wide and had a lid. The lid was often perforated with beautiful patterns and closed tightly. Such warmers were most often made of copper or brass. These metals have high thermal conductivity, meaning they heat up quickly and give off heat well. A long wooden handle, sometimes reaching 1.5 meters, was necessary for safety. The principle of use was simple, but required caution. Hot coals from the fireplace or stove were poured into the metal container. It was important that it was embers and not an open flame, otherwise a fire could be caused. The lid was closed tightly. Then a servant or the owner of the house himself would take the hot water bottle by its long handle and slide it under the blankets. After that, the process of ironing the bed began. The hot water bottle was not left in one place. It was moved smoothly across the entire surface of the mattress and under the pillows. The long handle allowed the user to reach all corners of the bed without bending over or risking burns. The metal quickly heated the sheets and blankets, evaporating excess moisture that had accumulated during the day in the cold room. These hot water bottles were so popular and convenient that they were used for hundreds of years until the advent of electricity and central heating. They are a striking example of how medieval ingenuity solved everyday problems. In our individualistic society, the idea of sleeping in the same bed with someone other than your spouse seems strange. But in the Middle Ages, people had a completely different attitude toward this. Sleeping together was not an exception, but the norm, and it was dictated primarily by a harsh necessity: saving heat. As we have already mentioned, beds were large, and they were not only large for status reasons. They were designed to accommodate several people. First and foremost, this was the family. Parents and their young children often slept together in one large bed. This was practical from all points of view. It was easier for mothers to feed their babies at night, and the children were under supervision. But most importantly, everyone kept each other warm. The warmth of the human body is a constant and free source of energy. In the enclosed space of the bed under the drawn curtains, several sleeping people could maintain a comfortable temperature throughout the night, even if the room was very cold. But sleeping together was not limited to family members. In large and wealthy homes, there was a complex sleeping hierarchy. The owners slept in the main bed, but their personal servants could sleep in the same room, on the floor or on simpler couches. This was done for safety and convenience. Servants had to be ready at any moment to carry out their master's orders, bring water, or stoke the fire in the fireplace. But a side effect was that their presence made the room warmer. In taverns and inns, sleeping together was common practice. Travelers were often offered not a room, but a place in bed. It was not uncommon for complete strangers of the same sex to end up in the same bed. This did not shock anyone. It was simply the price of lodging. Even in peasant families, where there might not have been any beds, the whole family slept together on a wide bench by the stove or on a large straw mattress. This communal sleeping culture gradually faded into the past with the advent of ideas of privacy and the development of heating technology. But for hundreds of years, it was the most reliable and affordable way to stay warm at night. This aspect of medieval life clearly shows how different their priorities were from ours. Comfort and survival were paramount, and body heat was the most natural way to achieve them. We took a long journey into the cold bedrooms of the Middle Ages and discovered a surprisingly warm and thoughtful world there. From debunking the myth of straw on the floor to the ingenious design of the tent bed, each element told us a story of the struggle for comfort. We saw that medieval people were not primitive savages, but true engineers of comfort. They masterfully used layering, insulation, and local heating to create a system that worked for centuries, and echoes of which we can still find in our homes today. Their secrets are not magic, but physics and common sense. Warm curtains, down quilts, nightcaps, and hot water bottles were their arsenal in the daily battle against the cold. And they won that battle. This story teaches us to appreciate simple and effective solutions. What do you think about these medieval methods? Which solution did you find the most ingenious or unexpected? Suggest topics for future videos about survival and everyday life in the past that you would like to see in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new research.